name's Jack. I work at Fat Beehive as a digital strategist, and today we're going to be talking about some simple steps, hopefully, that you guys potentially can kind of take on, and when approaching kind of maybe creating content for your organizations, some simple steps that could kind of help you guys create content strategically to maybe get a little bit more out of SEO. But probably the best place to start off on that front is what even is SEO. So put simply, SEO is about increasing your search ranking position for specific keywords on the internet that you guys are relevant to your organizations and websites. The question of SEO is to try and increase your ranking to move obviously up the positions there. It's just a kind of simple graphic there. But one of the key things to note about that is that often with Google search results, you're also coming into touch with PPC ads. So they're the ones that kind of are paid ads that are slightly different in terms of their kind of Google ads, not so much to do with SEO, and it's kind of a different ballpark to kind of compete with those. So when we're talking about SEO, really what kind of comprises SEO is content, structure, and authority. So really today we're focusing very much on content, and there's a kind of clear reason for that. So for you guys and for organizations, content's really where you should be putting your efforts into. Structure is very much important in the world of SEO. Having a technically sound website is key. A lot of the websites, though, however, are kind of, the internet now is largely quite similar. Platforms, etc., have become quite sophisticated. So actually, technical SEO is never going to really drive the results home for organizations. It's important, but the other steps in SEO, I'd argue, are slightly more important. Authority is quite hard to define. Definitely too hard to define in a roughly 15-minute slot, but simply it means how kind of authoritative your domain is on account of its relation to other websites on the internet. So making sure, I guess, that your website is kind of well linked to from relevant publications or news articles or organizations that you guys have collaborated with or partnered with. And the idea there is that Google sees your website as taking part in the internet at large and having a relationship with other websites out there, on the internet. And that kind of gives Google confirmation that you are kind of who you say you are, and it stops brand new websites starting up very quickly, gaining a lot of traffic, and then kind of disappearing from there. So really that leaves us with content, and content is quite simple to define, really. It's kind of what Google is all about. It's a kind of content finding and sharing device. So really when we talk about, and this is an example of our own website here, really when you have content in an SEO sense, in order to rank well, and you can see a relatively small, I'll admit, screenshot on the right there of, if you look for the word charity web design, that is luckily for us top of the results page, but that is what comes up there. And for us, in order for us to create a web page that actually ranks in first for such a term, we have two real options where it comes to things that we can control and things that all you guys can control on your websites as well. Really, what we have on the right there is the search results page, and we can control the title and the description underneath, and that is kind of loosely defined as meta content. All you're trying to do with your meta content is to signpost users so that they know what a page is about. And then really what we're going to be talking about more today is the on-page content. So you can see there our web page for charity web design, and a mixture of the titles, the visual content on there, and also obviously the main copy and the body text on that page. All of that is created strategically to touch upon phrases around charity web design, the simple term charity web design, and also other kind of relevant phrases and kind of corresponding topics. And we've kind of created that piece of content in order to rank for that term. And that's kind of put simply what all you guys with your websites should be doing in order to kind of improve those rankings. And SEO is often seen as a very broad topic, which I think kind of seems intimidating. It's also often seen as a very technical thing, but actually it's quite simple. It's really that a user, for in this example, who wants to see a charity web design page, has kind of clear wants and steers as to what they want to see on that web page. And we can very much kind of look into that using some tools to work out what those phrases and questions are and generate a web page that kind of does that job. So that's all well and good for us, obviously saying charity web design is a phrase we know is relevant for us as a charity web design agency. But actually working out what keywords are even worth optimizing is one of the main stumbling blocks for organizations. and getting to the bottom of that question really, I think, is at the kind of heart of being successful as an organization when it comes to SEO. So we have 4 main types of keywords really, and all search results can be broken down into these 4. The main one, and I think the most relevant for most kind of organizations that we work with, is informational. So basically it's people looking for information. It's largely questions, but it doesn't have to be phrased as a question. One quick example of that is how to improve SEO for a charity website, obviously quite relevant today. Navigational is the second type, definitely the most simple to understand. It's just people who know where they're trying to navigate on the internet already. So brand terms or organizational terms are very much the kind of prime example here. So for us, that would be Fat Beehive. Commercial terms, obviously SEO largely has come from the for-profit space, and that's resulted in quite a few bits of SEO terminology that are geared towards that, but largely they actually still apply to not-profit and non-for-profit spaces as well. So for commercial, this is people who are trying to explore or learn more about services, products, or any kind of provision that can be provided. They're not actually looking for information, they're looking for something beyond that in the sense of, for us, it would be maybe London-based charity web agency. And then the last one of these is transactional. This is very much the kind of bottom of the funnel, if you like. It's about, that's one quick example of buy charity WordPress theme, but this is this is a search that's very much at the end of their journey. They're not looking for information, they're not looking to explore their options, they're kind of at the very end and know specifically what they want. I think largely for a lot of the organizations we work with, that informational terms are really where the most value is, and I think all our clients lean on informational terms in a variety of ways. And then commercial terms as well, not purely commercial, as the phrase suggests, but actually looking at opportunities to rank for. For example, I was talking to a client today who's very interested in ranking for homeless terms based around various cities in the UK in order to kind of highlight their services. And whilst not commercial, it very much fits that mold. So they're your 4 kind of keywords, and these all keywords can be kind of fit into these 4. Search Console is Google's very much own data on organic, and it's a free tool. It's something we advise all our clients to be set up on. If anyone here is kind of thinking, I'm not sure we have that set up, we can very much help on that front. It's Google's own data on everything that happens on your website when it comes to what users are searching for, what pages of yours are being clicked on, how many times you're being seen in search. Search Console is massively worth having, and I think given kind of the move to the new analytics, etc., given it's kind of, Google's own tool, it's completely free, and the data is 100% accurate, it requires no tracking implementation on any website. So really, when we're talking about finding opportunities for you guys to rank, having Search Console set up is perfect, because you'll see that for any given web page on your site, you'll have terms that are generating you clicks, they're generating new impressions, which are all the people. If everyone in this room looked for the word charity web design, we'd all be an impression. And if I was the only one who clicked on the website, I'd obviously follow through as a click. So you can get a sense of potential audiences and then how you can obviously get them to your website. So I think definitely if after this kind of after this event, anyone who's interested in kind of talking a bit more about Search Console, I can talk for far longer than 15 minutes about it. So, but yeah, well worth having. Cool. So with that in mind, kind of isolating phrases and seeing, you guys, for example, your organization may have a page to do with a certain medical condition, a certain service you provide, realizing that there are X amount of people who look for that term, but perhaps you guys don't rank on the first page, or maybe you rank in 6th, when actually you kind of have all the right to be ranking much higher than that. And all the organizations we work with very much have the right to be ranking higher for the terms they do on account of kind of the good work and important stuff they do. So how do we actually go about updating content to improve its SEO performance? We kind of have keywords, we understand the relation into which pages appear for which things, but how do we actually update content? It's a big undertaking for our clients who are often short on resource and have to be quite diligent in terms of how they use their time. Actually kind of having an approach based around these 2 concepts, which I'm about to talk about shortly, hopefully should make updating content a far more efficient experience and allow for much better results. And really all Google is interested in when you create content or have a web page is having a web page that has a good coverage of a given topic. If you have a page about a specific service, it needs to cover that service well. And it also cares about freshness. So having web pages that are up to date, corresponding with the things that are going on in the world, very much relevant for not-for-profit organisations who generally are all doing things that are kind of happening in the world. So, coverage. When you look at a given web page, having an understanding of whether you're kind of comprehensively or covering a topic isn't just a question of creating longer and longer and longer web pages. That was kind of the SEO of the past, thankfully, but actually creating web pages that are of real value to users. So looking at kind of what follow-on questions, if you have a service around or a page around a specific condition, if it was a medical condition, let's say, looking at the things that users really actually want to know about and incorporating that into your content will massively improve that web page's performance. And Google's always looking for web pages that are kind of clearly answering questions. It's not just a matter of kind of information, questions and answers. It's also about unique perspectives. If you guys can lean on expertise, quotes from users of services, anything like that that provides kind of a unique angle to your web page or data, etc., that you guys own. A lot of organizations we work with do great research and don't use it anywhere near enough on their web pages. So it's not just a question of creating a long web page, it's kind of a question of creating coverage that's in depth, but also unique to your site. Bringing something unique to the internet is all what Google's about, especially as we move towards ChatGPT and all these kind of concepts as well. So in a kind of quick nutshell, that's coverage. And the other side of it is very much freshness. So if you can cover these two ideas with your web pages, you will be in a massively good position when it comes to SEO and far more sophisticated than most websites out there. Google loves fresh content, and it's not just a question of if you're a news article website, of course, you have to be very much up to speed with it. But and if you're writing a web page on top hits of the 90s, that information is kind of done now, so it doesn't need to change. But if you can kind of lean on freshness as an idea and make sure your web page is kind of constantly updated and moving with the times, it puts your web page in a far greater position to improve its rankings when it comes to SEO. One of the quick tips is often organizations will say, well, how do we approach this? We kind of have a topic, it's about a certain thing, we know what we're talking about, we don't have new, fresh ideas to lean on. One of the best things to do is to look around and find other websites that are ranking for the same terms that you're interested in and explore how often they're being updated and what they're leaning upon. Often you'll find that the most relevant web pages, even for topics that seem kind of very much static and not changing, will often be updated all the time, and big organizations and websites employ a lot of time into doing that. One way of perhaps making that potentially even clearer is to look at a live example. Cost of living crisis is obviously a super relevant thing in the world right now, massively searched for in the UK and in other regions. But specifically in the UK, this website here, the Institute for Government, is the one that comes up first. And I think there's some really clear reasons for that. And I think this bit hopefully gives a really clear outline of how a web page that looks just like a web page about a given topic is very much leaning on the ideas that we've kind of touched upon today to make sure that it ranks for first for that very important term with a lot of people searching for it. So this is the web page in question. Very much just looking at it in a nutshell looks like a web page, not particularly sophisticated, no flashing things, no embedded video, anything like that. But when you really start to break it down, it actually is doing a lot of very clever things and things that can be done quite quickly if it's done as a process and repeatable. Things that don't take hours and hours of time, but doing these things and doing them regularly has allowed this web page to rank very high. So the first thing is that it's a detailed piece of content. It's roughly coming in at around 1,500 words, and not all web pages need to be 1,500 words at all, but it's obviously a topic that has a decent need for information around it, and all websites we work with, all our clients will be leaning on that as well. And often if you really look at it critically, web pages on your websites will be shorter than if you had kind of time, etc., to create them longer. A lot of the time that they're kind of coming in shorter, and if you look at the things that outrank the websites you guys operate, often there'll be longer pieces of content. But it's not all just a question of creating long content. It's also about creating very clear content. So each section here is headed with subtitles outlining the questions they know their users want to know. What is the cost of living? How high is inflation, etc. So very clear content as well. Clear and simple answers. Each time a question is asked, they very much answer the question very quickly. You can see kind of web pages of 5 years ago, incredibly long, where you have to go to the end of a recipe, reading about the person's life story, you're still going. Hopefully we've moved away from that and Google's kind of getting wise to that. So answering questions quite quickly when you pose them is key. First-hand research. A lot of organizations we work with can lean on that stuff and don't do it, or will release a press release around that. which is 100% valid and definitely necessary, but actually incorporating small pieces of actionable research into your pages and even quotes from founders, users of services, anything like that that's unique to your page will massively improve it. So look for opportunities that allow you to do that. Valuable internal links. Google likes web pages that correspond to one another. So for example here, energy price caps comes up in the copy of that web page. It's clearly relevant to the cost of living crisis. So they've leaned on that. There's a separate page and it links to it in the flow of the copy on that page, so someone who's understanding that topic can click through. Really vital. Again, a lot of organizations can very quickly do that by looking at their important web pages. Last two, authorship is vital. You guys write content, and if you are writing content from a persona, lean on that and make sure that it's clear in the copy. Google likes to know a content was written by a real human being. Definitely improves the rankings, and these guys have leaned on that there. And then lastly, freshness is key. That page was actually last updated on June 28th, which was not too long ago at all. And actually you look through it from the Wayback Machine and stuff, it's been updated literally 30, 40, 50 times. So, you know, this is one very good example of this, but even just taking one or two of these things and trying to incorporate them into your content strategy, I think really will help move the dial, and it's something that you guys are very well positioned to do, create good content about the good things you're kind of all doing in the world.